Hello and welcome to this YouTube on how to handle loss and uncertainty on your ascension path. If you've been consciously aware for a while of the fifth dimensional energy waves that have been streaming onto the planet, you've probably noticed that their intensity has been increasing lately, and at times even exponentially. And as a light worker, you may have been experiencing even more change and loss in your life than you were before, along with a great deal more uncertainty. These challenges just seem to get more and more intense as time goes on. So if this is happening for you, know that you are likely one of the courageous pioneers on this path of ascension into the fifth dimension. And your challenges may appear more severe than many of those other people around you at times. You're perhaps a little ahead of the game, as it were, forging the path for others who are coming behind you. So rather than feeling like something's wrong with you or that you're somehow lagging behind and might not be ascending at all because so many negative things seem to be happening in your life, know that you're probably simply experiencing a sped-up version of what I call ascension clean-out, so as to eventually be in the position to assist others when their turn comes, which it inevitably will. You will have already been through this process and learned how to navigate your way through it, so you'll be able to help them. But it can be a difficult journey, so I'm going to be addressing here how you can learn to ride these ascension energies with as much ease and comfort and joy as possible. So, first of all, it's important to remember that the experience of ascension is not a static or a predictable one. There are surprises and twists and turns that just seem to keep happening. But you can look at ascension as a type of dance, a dance of simultaneously having to let go of old limiting energies of the third dimension, all your old stuff, and at the same time opening up to the new and expansive energies of the higher fourth and the fifth dimensions. It can be a little tricky and confusing at times. But fortunately, because the ascension energies do seem to come in waves, the ascension process is also a dance that has pauses in it, when everything seems to calm down and smooth out for a while. And it's good to remember this, because during these times, you have the opportunity to relax and breathe and begin integrating what has been occurring for you. Perhaps you'll find that you seem to be able to access more easily many wonderful things that are in the new operating system of the higher fourth dimension, such as love and inner peace and laughter. Perhaps you'll realize that if your mood does grow gloomy, it's kind of harder to stay in that state of mind than it was in the past. You may even find that negative emotions aren't as dense or powerful as they used to be for you. And maybe that it's hard to hold on to your anger or sadness for any length of time, and it's much easier now to shift your attention to something positive or pleasurable. Indeed, sometimes, even in the middle of a really painful situation, you may suddenly experience a powerful moment of pure joy, or maybe feel your heart well up with gratitude for something. You may also find that it's easier to recognize that your depressed mood has to do with the story you're telling yourself about what's happening in your life, and that you can just as easily tell yourself another more positive story about this. Or maybe no story at all. It's all a lot simpler to do these things with these new energies that are streaming into the planet now. There's an opportunity to experience a great deal more freedom and empowerment. And at the same time, when a wave of ascension energy does bring trauma or a challenging loss to you, and you feel yourself grasping for familiar, safe ground to stand on, it's helpful to have keys that can assist you to do this, tools that can be touchstones for bringing you back to a sense of stability. So these can be important to remember. For example, there may be times you experience anxiety due to a sense that there's no longer a feeling of security present in your life that used to come from maybe a marriage or a partnership that's now dissolved. Or it was a secure bank account that's now been depleted. Or maybe it's a family member or a friend who loved you who's no longer around. Or some other loss like this. And now, with the loss of one or more of these outer supports you've always had, you feel adrift in a sea of change with nothing secure to hold on to anymore. Or perhaps you feel at times a sense of being constantly pushed ahead too quickly, that you're being compelled to let go of old relationships, old goals you used to have, old beliefs, one after another without a break. Like you're constantly being moved out of your comfort zone. You barely catch your breath, and you're being pushed to the next level of letting go of what was feeling safe. When these things happen, you have the opportunity to discover something very important. And that's that your only true security comes from within you. It does not originate from anything outside of you. And often, for you to finally discover this, all outer supports you mistakenly thought were keeping you safe will disappear, at least for a while. Another way you can look at the situation is seeing that you will often have the choice of two different approaches to life. The third dimensional choice of survival and the fifth dimensional choice of trust. The third dimensional mode of survival in this context doesn't just apply to getting your food and shelter and other material needs met. It refers to a usually unconscious approach to life in general in which you may be trying to stay in control of everything in your life. There's a belief that you'd better make sure everything going on is in place or you won't make it. You'd better have enough money, which may mean a reliable job, money in the bank, or maybe a close relationship with someone who will support you. And also that you have good relationships to feel emotional support when you need it. You may not look at relying on these things as a mode of survival, but they are. You've just lived with them for so long that they don't seem to be a form of survival. The important thing to realize is that when you're in the mode of survival, like I've said, you're looking outside of yourself for all you need. You're using your limited third dimensional mind to determine how you're going to survive here on the planet, how to get things you need to physically survive, and how to get the emotional support you believe you need from people around you. And this can keep you in a low level but kind of continuous state of anxiety, especially as you come to realize in the end that you may have very little control over outer conditions. As you move toward fifth dimensional consciousness, you will find that you need to let go of this limited perspective about your safety. You'll see that your belief that your needs are going to be met by things and situations that you've set up outside of you and by people that you've brought into your life, that belief just isn't working very well anymore. If you're strongly attached to believing that these things are responsible for your sense of safety and survival, as I say, you will probably be given the opportunity to find out that they're not. If, for example, you lose your job or your life savings or an important relationship, know that it is this learning dynamic that may be what's operating. So instead of panicking, See if you can drop inside yourself and align with the trust that you will find the means of survival in other ways, perhaps in ways that will bring you an even greater sense of joy and freedom and sense of security. The answer is to look within yourself for your connection to Source to find your security. And this may be difficult when it feels like only chaos exists inside of you, when, familiar parts of yourself are falling away and new unfamiliar parts are appearing. But if you can look past these changing aspects of yourself, you will realize that these are just parts of your personality self. And they're shifting. If you can look more deeply, you will discover that there's an essential you inside that is not changing. It's the you that was the same when you were 3 years old, 15 years old, 35 years old. It is and always has been the you that is real. It's also the one that has always been leading you through life, taking care of you, whether you've been aware of it or not. In these experiences of deep insecurity and loss of connection to outer support, know that you are being called to trust this higher you, this higher self. See if you can trust that it knows exactly what it's doing in bringing about the changes in your life, including the losses that initially seem really painful. Know that the things that you are losing are likely essential for you to lose so that you can prepare for entering into the fifth dimension. One thing that's very important to realize is that when you seem to be losing something in your life, consciously choosing to let it go can make the experience a lot easier. If your life starts feeling chaotic and unstable, you will probably see that you're trying to hold on to something that is wanting to leave. If you're losing a long-time mode of making a living or a comfortable home you've enjoyed for years, or a relationship you've relied on for years, see if you can make a leap of faith to just let it go. Trust that if this is happening, it's probably what's necessary for your awakening. And know that you will be taken care of in ways you might never have thought of before. Realize that the more you try to hang on to things that are disappearing, the more the universe is going to push back at you. It's really important to trust this process. The loss of something in your life may prove to eventually be temporary, but it may be final. There's no knowing. But for the time being, it's wise to let it go and trust there's a plan your higher self has for you in losing that situation or circumstance or person in your life. Perhaps you can explore old beliefs and attitudes or perspectives on life that you have that are not actually based in truth. You may find that what you thought was totally essential for you to be able to live in comfort and joy really isn't essential after all. Finding out what is really essential to your being, you can discover who you are beyond all your ego identities, all your ego attachments and limited beliefs about yourself. And once you can do this, once you decide to just cooperate with what the Ascension energies are doing to your life, it can actually be exciting to watch and anticipate whatever may be next coming toward you in life, knowing that it is coming in order to lift you yet further into a higher vibration. Now, the positive and freeing purpose of certain experiences can certainly be unclear at times until you've made your way through them. But if you look closely, you really can see that everything, absolutely everything, is happening for your ascension in as expedient a way as possible. You just need to trust this and cooperate in the best way you can so that you are skillfully and trustingly riding the ascension energies as they flow in rather than resisting them. This process of letting go, it may bring up basic survival tears in you. It can feel like a stripping away of who you are. But remember, it's only a stripping away of who you think you are. It's the dismantling of the ego structure you've taken to be yourself. The good news is that you'll find out that throughout this whole deconstruction period, this ascension clean-out period, the essential you will remain intact. In fact, this true reality of who you are will finally be able to shine forth in all its glory. You will experience a thrilling sensation of freedom when you realize that it is all of you who are not that's being released. Ascension into the fifth dimension is truly a form of rebirth. And in order to be reborn, you need to essentially kind of die first to what you have been in the past. In a way, it's not all that different from the physical dying process in third dimension experience. In the end, you have to let go of everything, that you have no choice. If you can move into trust of your ascension process, you'll find that the wave you're riding into the fifth dimension is bringing you to a place of greater security, greater peace and joy than you can even imagine at this point. So it seems that if you learn nothing else on your journey into the fifth dimension, it's probably going to be trust. Not only trust of your higher self, also trust of the unknown. Trust that you're being guided no matter how alone you may feel. Trust that whatever is happening to you, as unsettling and unfamiliar as it may be at times, it's absolutely right for you. Over time, you will see that you're simply traveling on the road less traveled. And there are not yet a lot of road signs where you're traveling or obvious pointers as to which way to go. As I say, you're one of the early pioneers taking this road. So, unidentified crossroads may confuse you. Apparent dead ends may cause you to doubt yourself. You might feel totally alone on this path at times. You may have to backtrack and choose a different unknown road to take. You may feel lost for a while until you get your bearings again. But in time, you will learn to trust where the road is taking you. You'll find that trusting is the only option that makes sense. It's the only one that's the least painful in the end. You know, there's another analogy describing this process of trust, especially when you find yourself struggling to hold on to your old life and your old identity. And it's one that's given to us by indigenous elders about the shift we're currently in. And this is an analogy of, it's of a river we've all been swimming along in our lives. And until now, we've generally been swimming close to shore where the current is relatively gentle, and we've been stopping off here and there along the way, taking a rest and meeting people and setting up camp for a while in different comfortable places. And they tell us that it's now time to move away from the shores of the river, to not hang on to anything familiar there anymore. It's time rather to swim out to the middle of the river and just let the powerful currents take you there. It's time to surrender to the river and trust it will take you where you need to go. Now, these analogies may bring up fear and uncertainty, but don't worry. As you become more and more aware on your ascension journey, You'll see that you are being guided and held and protected, and that you are always being kept on course in the right direction, in right timing. Now, one of the other signposts on your ascension path that you may be ignoring is when, a feeling of struggle arises when you're trying to achieve something you want to achieve. And block after block seems to happen, preventing this. If you find yourself in this situation, and it's clear over and over again that it's not working, see if you can be wise and just stop the struggling. Cease your striving to push forward and, give up trying to make something happen that isn't wanting to happen. Instead, assume that something else is attempting to happen and surrender to this probability. Watch to see what else may unfold or appear. Now, you may initially feel that what's happening is not right. It's not what's supposed to be happening. But if you have trust and you stay tuned to your inner knowing, you'll realize in time that it's actually exactly perfect. You'll see that everything coming into your life is what will help you ascend in the fastest, smoothest way possible. You'll begin to see this more clearly if you shift your perception of yourself and your life from your mind to your sacred heart. Intuitively, you will sense the rightness of all occurrences and experiences in your life as they happen. So again, navigating your way from 3D to 5D is all about trust. In fifth dimensional consciousness, there's no reliance on anything in the outer world for a sense of safety or survival. There's only a reliance on trust, a trust that life will bring you absolutely everything you need when you need it. Eventually, this trust is replaced by a secure knowing. It's a certainty based on your own experience that you've seen in seeing that you are always taken care of time after time. But until that knowing fully develops, trust is what you need to rely on. A trust in that higher power, whether you name this God or Spirit or Source or your higher self. You trust that it's guiding your life and taking care of you with the utmost compassion and wisdom because it is. Now, this doesn't mean that you just sit on your couch all day and watch videos and, just trusting you're being taken care of. Although it could mean this for a while, if this is what's appropriate or necessary for you. It just means that you have trust that you will be shown the way to live and support yourself and find not only a sense of security, but also a sense of well-being in all ways. It may actually mean that you gear up to explore doing all the more out in the world to take care of yourself. But your motivation will come from a calm, intuitive nudging to do those things, not from an anxiety that comes out of your mind. With trust as your guide, you will begin finding synchronicities just blooming all around you. Little miracles will just become commonplace in your life. And the more you live from this place of trust, the stronger your trust will become. You'll see that there's nothing outside in the world that's permanent or totally dependable for your safety or survival or happiness. But with the trust you have inside, it won't matter. Learning to live fully from a place of trust is not always easy, but the relaxation and the freedom from fear that you experience when you begin to achieve this are monumental and will change your entire experience of life. So learning this is especially important now because there may come a time in the months and the years ahead when the collective consciousness of the planet will be greatly challenged by the events that may take place, events that might topple any sense of financial or physical security for people. There are economists and visionaries alike who are predicting major collapses in the near future in the world's economy and in governmental structures. We're already seeing a lot of that. And since humanity is in the process of transitioning very rapidly into a higher dimensional consciousness, it makes sense that we may be seeing a great deal more of the chaos that we're seeing already in old dysfunctional institutions and the governing structures before new ones can be established. And if so, we may also see some major panicking going on in responses to all the changes and the uncertainty that humanity will be experiencing. And so if all this does happen, fear may reign for a while around you in your world, and it's going to be important for you to create your own personal inner eye of the storm in order to not take on the vibration of fear that may be storming around you at some point. A clear, still place within in which you can maintain an experience of trust and peace. You can see it as a fifth-dimensional bubble that you can function in that's not affected by the third and lower fourth-dimensional fear vibrations all around you. It's always best to practice for this kind of situation ahead of time, to prepare and develop this quiet place of trust inside you before you actually need it. Like, you could give yourself practice with smaller things at first. For example, if you hear at some point that you're going to be needing some medical care in the near future, and you have no idea at this point where the money for it is going to come from, see if you can move into trust about it. Know that the medical care is important for you, and so of course it's going to be taken care of. Have faith and actual expectation that the money will be provided at the right time in the right way. And you may be surprised at how this faith will actually bring to you the resources you need, sometimes from totally unexpected sources. And another major key in learning how to stay balanced and out of fear about financial or emotional survival is to focus on living in the present moment. I know you've heard this a lot probably in your life, but it's something we all need to be reminded about. You may, for example, be concerned, let's just talk about, okay, your rent is due next month, and you're not sure where that money is going to come in from and how to pay it. Maybe you've lost your job or something else has happened. What you can do is become aware that you are not living in next month yet. You're here right now. And if you can hold your focus on the present moment, you can create a different scenario for yourself in the future than the one you're dreading at this point. You can affirm something like, well, right now I'm fine. I have a roof over my head. I've got food to eat. Let me ground myself, clear my mind, and just enter into trust. Let me take some deep breaths and see what my options are. And see if my mind is a little bit clearer now. And if my ideas do run out, my mind really can't think of anything, then I know that the universe has countless ways I know nothing about that can bring what I need in order to pay my rent next month. In doing this, staying in the here and now, new possibilities can then begin to flow into the clear and open space that you've created. In actuality, when you practice, really, truly practice trust, it can seem like magic is happening in your life, and you may have experienced it. If you choose to live with this higher vibration of light anchored within you, you'll begin seeing that things always work out in your life. You're somehow always taken care of. If you believe you'll be taken care of, you will be. This is how the universe works. Like I say, at times the most unforeseen, miraculous seeming things can happen when you're facing what seems like a disastrous situation. You know, in one moment you're feeling desperate and hopeless, and in the next something totally unexpected happens that completely turns the disaster around. If you think about it, you may have already had this kind of experience in your life. You know, if so, remember that and know it can happen again and again. You really never know what's around the corner that may save you. There are so many possibilities beyond what you can now imagine of how something can happen. It really makes sense to just let the universe or God, the higher self, take care of it for you, rather than forcing your rational mind to make it scrambling, ineffective attempts at solving this kind of problem. When, you know, finding a solution is so obviously beyond your mind's capabilities. Now, it's also important in this process of learning to trust to be aware of cultural messages that you probably got in growing up about how to make important life decisions. You know, these are messages that inevitably bring on self-doubt. Most of us growing up in the third dimension were not encouraged to make decisions from our own natural place of knowing. It was assumed that we needed to learn from others what was right and wrong and which decisions to make. Our own inherent inner guidance system was not acknowledged or valued or even known about. We were also taught that the best way to make decisions was by using our rational mind, which, unfortunately, as I say, it doesn't work very well. It has a natural tendency towards fear and limitation and a distrust of the world around us. And as a result, a lot of us were taught to doubt ourselves and our own judgments. And as adults, we can still struggle with this doubt when making important decisions. So if you're having a hard time making a major life decision, you may find yourself simply jumping back and forth between the pros and the cons of each option and just getting nowhere. The key when this happens is to understand that you're using the wrong tool for making this decision. You're using your rational mind. Now, the mind can be a good tool if you're making small, mundane decisions, you know, such as what you're going to eat for lunch, when to set a doctor's appointment, or what to wear to a dinner party. But for the more important decisions in life, the mind is woefully inadequate. In discovering this, you may find yourself turning to other people for their opinions on your situation. And inevitably, they will give you their opinions. And sometimes it can be helpful to hear what others have to say, but often these opinions just add to your confusion. Sometimes you might hear, you know, the advice, oh, just follow your heart. Well, this can sound good, right? But what does that really mean? You know, when you go into your heart, you may simply be accessing your emotional heart as opposed to your sacred heart. They're two different things. And you might initially encounter painful emotions and unmet desires about your situation, fraught with fear and anger and despair. And, of course, this can be helpful in telling you something about your emotional state, but your emotional heart is probably not the best guide for helping you to make an important life decision. Now, you may also hear the advice from other people, oh, just follow your intuition. And again, this can really sound good. And it's often a better, you know, kind of advice than following your mind. But perhaps you aren't sure that what you hear inside is actually your intuition. Maybe it's just your mind, or it's your inner child talking, or it's your inner judge, or whatever else might be in there. How could you tell? Well, especially now, during this time of ascension, when you're making an important decision in life where you need to focus, is on your sacred heart. It is here that your answers reside. Now, your sacred heart can be found just somewhat above your fourth chakra, just above your emotional heart. Take some time to see if you can discern the difference between your emotional heart and your sacred heart. Your emotional heart is the seat of your emotions. There's love there, definitely. But like I said, there's probably also a lot of other conflicting and maybe painful emotions. Your sacred heart, on the other hand, is not emotional in that way. Yes, there's love, but it's a more detached, unconditional kind of love. It's a love that has no opposite. And there's a peace and a stillness in the sacred heart. You can call it your spiritual heart, your higher heart, whatever, but it's a whole different place. In this heart, there's a deep knowing of spirit, of source. As you sit quietly and focus on your sacred heart, you can place your hand on your chest and just breathe deeply and see if you can breathe into a deeper place beyond thoughts and feelings, into a stillness that is always present there. And when you're settled in silence, focus on your question and ask, what is right action in this situation? Now note that this is the important term, right action. You're not asking how to get what you want or what will make you happy. And you're not asking what you should do. You're asking, what is right action? What is the action or decision that will create the most benevolent outcome for you? What will be for the highest good of all concerned? Your sacred heart always knows the answer to this question. And it's always compassionate and gentle with you. It doesn't create guilt or shame or fear in you. And you may not like its response at first, but you will know it is best for you because of the love that you experience in hearing it. Now, you may not hear words in answer to your question. Everyone is different. You may instead just experience a feeling or a sensation in your body that you know immediately what that means. Or you may see an image that makes it clear. Or just a knowing of the answer will appear. And if none of these things happen, then start being alert to synchronicities in your outer world that are going to point you in the right direction. Sometimes that's how the answers come. But it's about asking your sacred heart, what is right action? Now, during these times when you're experiencing a great sense of loss and uncertainty in your life, it can also be helpful at times to purposely slow your pace with everything you're doing. Stop if you can and take some deep breaths when it gets overwhelming instead of pushing yourself. Just come often into the present moment. It's the only place where you're going to find balance. Give up multitasking for a while and just focus on one thing at a time. And instead, choose to engage in an activity that brings you peace or fun or laughter. Regardless of what else you think may be pressing on you that you need to do. Just take this time to take a break. Come into the present moment and see what is going to bring you that sense of greater peace. And also keep in mind that you're in the middle of experiencing a very rapid transformational process. This stuff coming up isn't the normal run-of-the-mill stuff you're used to dealing with. This is a butterfly process. And a cocoon is always a mushy mess on the inside before it can form into the butterfly. Be patient with yourself. Remember that when suffering arises, do your best to relax into it. Don't argue with it. Don't resist it or try to change it right away. You don't want to fall into it either. You don't want to wallow in it, but just gently let it be there. You know, at some point you will find a way to release it. And it can also be helpful to ask yourself what it is you're being invited to see or learn from the situation. Is there something you're being encouraged to release? Is there something you're resisting that you need to embrace? Look for the gift being offered to you, as there always is one hidden within all challenging situations. And no matter what your journey brings up for you, above all, remember that before you incarnated this time around, you knew full well what would be happening on Earth during your sojourn here. You fully understood and gratefully signed up for it and all it would entail, and you trusted that all would fall into place as you made your way along your journey. Now you must trust that decision you made. You must trust that you are being guided every step of the way, not only by your higher self, but also by your guides, celestial beings, spiritual masters, galactic beings who are here specifically to assist in the ascension process. They're all here with you, whether you're aware of them or not. Call on them whenever you need them. You are definitely not alone in this process. So this is what your journey from 3D to 5D is at its core. It's what it's basically about, learning to trust what is occurring for you in your life, as crazy as it might seem at times. Learning to trust yourself and your inner guidance coming from your sacred heart. That's what you have to learn. And to trust your ascension process itself, knowing that all these beings are here helping to guide you through it. And learning to trust that you have what it takes to be a pioneer on this path into the fifth dimension. You know, it's a path that's never been traveled before, even by very highly evolved souls, because this journey now involves taking your physical body with you. And your journey also likely involves assisting others to do the same. So really be patient with yourself. And for now, I will just leave you here to contemplate all this. And I send you much love and many blessings as you negotiate this increasingly intense phase of your ascension process.